Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. My guest this week is Cary Carbonaro, CFP, MBA, Managing Wealth Advisor, and Women in Wealth Ambassador at Ashton Thomas, where she leads a multi-million-dollar financial planning practice focused on empowering women. Cary is the best-selling author of 2 books, including her most recent Women in Wealth, a playbook to empower clients and unlock their fortune, and has been ranked 6 times among Investopedia's top 100 financial advisors. In 2024, she became the first female member of the NASDAQ Advisor Council, and she is represented by the Washington Speakers Bureau for speaking engagements. I had the pleasure of seeing Cary speak at a pre-conference event for women advisors before Nitrogen's Fearless Investing Summit back in February, and I loved so much of what she had to say about how women investors are the market for advisors and how women advisors can set themselves apart in an industry that is traditionally catered more towards the male side of the investor spectrum. So in this episode, Cary is pulling back the curtain on all of the marketing strategies that have built her practice over a 25 plus year career, and it has never once involved cold calling or paying for a room full of people to listen to her. She talks about showing up consistently and authentically across social media before it was cool to do so, how she's invested in PR, TV, books, and speaking, and how that long game approach has ultimately led to clients coming to her already feeling like they know her before they've even reached out. And yes, Cary is the expert on marketing to women. And so we get into her bold and well-supported case that women are not a niche. They are the market. And she shares specific and actionable things that all advisors can do right now to build stronger relationships with women clients and stop losing them when a spouse passes away. So whether you are a male advisor who wants to better connect with women clients or attract women clients, or you're a female advisor looking for inspiration for someone who has truly cracked the code on what it means to serve women well in financial services, this one is packed with insights. So without further ado, let's dive in. Cary, I am so delighted to have you join me on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. How are you today?
Great, Hillary. Thanks. So happy to be here.
Well, I have learned a lot about you over the past month or so, and I know that one thing about you is you are a very successful marketer, especially when it comes to attracting wealthy women who want to work with you and want to come into your firm. Can you tell us, looking back over the course of your career, what do you feel like is one of the most successful things that you have done to attract women into your business?
Sure. Well, it's definitely not one thing. I definitely don't think I could put it all on one success. I think it's a combination of a lot of different things that I've done over the course. So I'm going to take you back a little bit. Before I was an advisor, I actually ran marketing and electronic marketing and I don't know what you call that today. I think it's called I don't know. What is it when you digital marketing or digital something like that. Anyway, for Lord Abbett mutual funds. So I was a marketer before I was an advisor. And so that is a very unique skill set that doesn't really translate in most cases. However, before I was a marketer, I worked one-on-one with clients and I got my CFP. So I had like left brain, right brain. I think that they're related, but to me, most advisors are not marketers as well, which is why they need somebody like you to do that and to help them with that. But for me, it was super easy. And, I just grabbed a hold of social media and I was like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's free. It's amazing. You can get your message out. You can go across channels. You can just, and for me, also, the most important thing was my authenticity, and that I always was myself in all social media channels. And, you're never going to get a different version of me. You're always going to get this version of me, personal, professional, etc. And I always say the same thing in both. And that was really important for me too, because I wanted to just never have two different sides. I wanted to just be the same person in both. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing I did was, I'm also really good in PR because of my marketing background. So I think when I first started, I was leveraging PR at a very early on in my career. So I was being quoted in newspapers and magazines, when we had newspapers and magazines, before the online world. And so I was constantly quoted in those. And that was getting me clients. I was a part of the FPA, Financial Planning Association, and we had a column in the Sunday newspaper in the Orlando Sentinel, and I was constantly answering questions there, and people would hunt me down and find me from that. I also started doing TV at a young age, so I've probably been doing TV now for like 20 years, and I'm quite good at it, which is also a different skill set, but also because I was media trained, and that has gotten me clients through my media appearances. So I would say, first, those three things: PR, quoted in articles, and then being on TV. Those were my first early entrees. Then I wrote my first book about 15 years ago. And then I wrote my second book a couple of years ago, but it just came out last year. So both of those are also entrees into getting clients, is the whole book. And then the books also open up speaking, writing, podcasting, all of that, more media interviews, and all of that. So that was another whole route that opened up after each book. Then I also write, I have a blog, I have a newsletter on LinkedIn. That's actually new. It took me a long time to get there, but I finally have it. And I also have now, which is obviously later on in my career, but I am now represented by the Washington Speakers Bureau for my speaking engagements.
Wow. So,
So I got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of marketing.
yeah, the thread that's really coming through to me as I hear you talk about all of these things is that you've never been afraid to just show up and get yourself out there.
No, no, no. And I've always, it's funny because I'm not quote unquote salesy at all. Like, anybody who knows me would never think that I would be like, hire me. Let's talk about financial planning. Let's talk about your investments. That is the complete opposite of what I would ever do. I have
Mhm.
always made people contact me and reach out to me and ask me. And I have never cold called or solicited or anything, or ever put anybody at ease or feel uncomfortable, like kind of like I always say, like a used car salesman, and
Right.
there's a lot of people in our profession, and I'm not calling names out, but most of them are men who make people feel uncomfortable because they're constantly selling them.
Right. Exactly. I think there's a huge difference between putting your name out there and offering value so that people want to come to you
Exactly.
rather than cold calling them and trying to force value down their throats, so to
Right.
speak.
Well, and it's funny because I'm in Florida, which Florida is known, for those lunch and dinner seminars. I guess
Hmm.
they're around all over the country, but they're really prevalent in my neck of the woods in Florida, because it's, retirees and seniors, and everybody just wants a free lunch or a free dinner. And every time I get it, I laugh, because I'm like, I cannot believe that this is how people build their business. They're paying for people to listen to them. I get paid for people to for me to give my advice. Like, so I'm the complete opposite. Not only am I not going to pay for you, you're going to have to pay me. So it's just a completely different mindset of how you want to do business.
Oh,
And I'm not saying
absolutely.
that mine's better, it's just more profitable.
Yeah, it's just more profitable and it feels better and more authentic to you to do it that
Right.
way.
Right.
In your book, you mentioned the book that just came out last year was Women in Wealth, correct?
Yes.
And
Yes.
in your book, as I was flipping through it, you listed all of these different ways that advisors can market that I think are in opposition almost to the dinner and the lunch and learn seminars and that kind
Right.
of thing. Think events that are more fun for people to go to
Yes.
and that end up creating better
Yes.
relationships. Have you done any of
100%.
those that you'd care to share
Yeah,
about
so
or share
it's
about?
interesting because I have not really had to do any business development most of my career, which
Mm,
is also unique and different. However, when I was at United Capital, I was a partner at United Capital. I won an award. It was called the Diamond Level Award that they gave right before we got sold to Goldman Sachs. And with that award, it came with like I think it was like a 15 or $20,000 marketing budget for either an event or for the year. But the
mm,
problem was that we got acquired by Goldman before I got to use that money. And so then by the time we got to Goldman, everything that I wanted to do was denied. And then I literally said to my marketing team, I'm just going to do a spa party at my house. And they
mm.
said, okay. And so I literally did. I spent all the whole entire amount. I brought in all the top spa providers from my area. Every room had a different treatment in my house. I had like 100 people come over, and it was like an open house throughout the day. I had catered lunch. I had. It was like incredible. It was like all day from like I guess it was like maybe from 10 to 5. And
Oh,
I had so many people in and out of the house. And it was not for I think I gave my book away, my first book away. I gave a little party gift with spa stuff in it. So I had an event planner to help me with it because it was such a big undertaking because it's not my skill set. It was fantastic, and people still talk about it to this day. And everyone's like, "When are you doing that again?" And I'm like, "Never."
it sounds so fun and also so exhausting.
But and again, I did not do it for business development. I really did it to for my clients, for my friends, for my neighbors. At the time I had recently moved into a new neighborhood, so all my neighbors came. It was my entree to meeting my neighbors. So it was like a dual or triple purpose type of thing. So, but that
Absolutely.
was but that was a fantastic event for women, all
I can
women.
all women. And I can only imagine, I mean, current clients who came to that event, I can only imagine how much that increased their loyalty to you. I
Right,
know they already had loyalty to you, but just
right.
to increase it, I mean, I just there you can't replace
No,
that with
no, and
anything
the
else.
other thing, it's interesting because I did something else that was kind of a little bit ahead of its time. Pre-COVID, I always had a home office. And I
Hmm.
always made my house a home office,
Hmm.
like bought the house specifically for the purpose of being like an office on the first floor, an office on the main level. And it's interesting because when I was at when we were acquired, when I went to United Capital and became a partner, they originally said, "There's no way we're going to let you keep this office." And then they came to visit me and they were like, "Wow, this is really nice. And the setting is fantastic. We feel so comfortable, and we can't even imagine how amazing your clients feel here." And they said, "We're going to let you keep it." And I said, "I knew you were going to." And they did. Except that when we got acquired by Goldman, they completely shut it down immediately and said, "You will never do that again." Got me, and then COVID happened. So then, everything, the whole world was upended and changed. But I still do that for my clients. So not only do you have the trust, but you're literally being brought into my home.
Right. What could be more trust building than that?
Right. And it's just honestly because I didn't want to, two reasons. First of all, it's easier for me to work from home. I don't want to have to travel. And I didn't want to pay Class A office rate space.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a win-win-win for me. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that was definitely ahead of its time. I mean, it's definitely done way more today than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I think,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit ahead of the curve then.
Absolutely. And going back to something that you said earlier, it sounds like you were a little bit ahead of the curve on social media as well. You mentioned that showing up on social media, you've always just shown up as your authentic self. When you get
Right,
one Cary, there's no second Cary that you're
right,
getting in person
right.
or on camera or anything like that. And I have seen that that's something a lot of advisors really struggle with, is
Yes,
figuring out, how do I show up authentically as myself? Do I even want to? Thinking every single post I create needs to be educational, buttoned up, that
right.
kind of vibe. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and just what you would say to other advisors?
Well, it's interesting because I always say, be yourself, everybody else is taken, right? Which is not my quote.
Mhm.
Somebody else said that, but I love that quote. And I say it all the time. And it's interesting because I don't understand why you would ever want to be anybody but yourself. Like,
Mhm.
that's it. Like, they're hiring you for you. So you have to be yourself. You
Mhm.
can't pretend to be somebody. You can't, like, I feel like, especially a woman will see right through it. And also, women have incredible intuition. And I always say it's for them to trust their intuition and trust their gut because
Mhm.
they're almost always right. It's almost always right. And so if something
Mhm.
doesn't feel right, it's not. And I know even myself, the few mistakes I've made in my life was not trusting that intuition. And,
Mhm.
those were the mistakes that I made in my life. So I know it from firsthand experience. And so I guess, showing up as myself was just easy to do it that way. I never
Mhm.
thought of another way. And again, I was media trained very young. I was media trained in my 20s and in my 30s. And I was good at it and it was natural and it was easy for me. I mean, I could do live TV very easily, and people say that that's really hard, and it really wasn't for me. So I was like, well, this is just one of my skill sets. So I'm good at it.
Mhm. What do you think women in particular like about that, about you?
I think that they like that, again, I practice what I preach. What you see is what you get. They're not going to get anything different. And anything I tell them is in the best interest. The advice that I tell them is going to be in the best interest. I'm a fiduciary first, and they know that. They, I'm like incredibly transparent with my clients. I will show them my tax return. I will show them my Fidelity portfolio. That's also super rare, I guess, from what I'm told. But
Mhm.
I have no problem with it because I'm looking at theirs, so I'm happy to show them mine if they want to see it.
I think that is incredibly rare. And I also think that that speaks hugely to the success that you have had because from my perspective, and you've spent much more time than I have thinking about the relationship between women in this entire industry. But the perspective that I have is that women are largely mistrustful of financial advisors.
Right.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure, sure. So I have so much of that in my book because I have
Mhm.
all the studies and the stats and the all of that. I mean, it's not all just from my head, it's from all research.
Mhm.
And there was a Harvard Business Review study that came out in 2009, and it said that financial services is the industry that is least sympathetic to women, but the one that has the most to gain if they get it right.
Mhm.
And so, and it's so simple. Equal treatment to men, reaching out during major life events. But I always also say the industry only looks at women as in two categories. Wealth management looks at women as divorced and widowed, and that's it. And in
Mhm.
my book, I have a life cycle that's a circle, which has a lot more life events that women have that are very important to women, and women are not just divorcees and widows. However, obviously, those are important times in women's lives when they need financial help or they should be working with an advisor.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's what I think, about that stat. And then the issue is that then the other issue, which is in my book, which is the stat that 70 to 90% of women leave their advisors after their spouse dies, which is technically 80% if you split the difference. That
Mhm.
stat has not changed for decades. So
Mhm.
what is happening is those women are leaving mainly male advisors and going to female advisors. Now, female advisors, most of the female advisors I know, our buckets are full and we have as much clients as we can handle. So we either need more female, we either need more staff, like I need more staff, I know that that's an issue for me, or we need more female advisors to come in and handle these women. Ironically, I ask this question all the time in mixed audiences, and men never say that they're losing clients. So it's
Mhm.
hysterical to me because they either don't know, don't care, or just are lying. I honestly don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. Maybe it's don't know. And that's why everybody says, I never lost a client.
Right. I mean, the rooms that I've been in, and I've been in one of these rooms with you, I've heard that as well.
Yes.
So it's quite a discrepancy there. So let's speak to the men for a moment, because I know that I
Okay.
have a lot of male advisors who listen to the podcast. what are the things that they're maybe doing wrong without realizing it?
Sure. Well, guys, guess what? I'm here to help. I am not here to make things difficult. I'm actually here. I literally wrote the playbook slash guidebook to teach you to work with women. So, and it's funny because people always say to me, like, what's one thing that they can do? I'm like, it's not one thing. It's, I have like 150 things they can do. So just pick
Mhm.
one of them. Like, so you literally can read the book. I'm actually doing a workshop with the book too, so that, so you can, because it's like a textbook. Unfortunately, it's 400 pages and there's a lot of information in there. So it's a little overwhelming. I have people having pages of notes next to the book of what to do, but I'll give you the highlights. So one thing is you probably don't even know what you don't know. And that's okay. That's why I wrote this for you, right? So there's a quiz in the book. That's actually not my quiz. It's a friend of mine's quiz. And so it is, how female friendly is your practice? And it's a 20-question quiz, super simple, and it will uncover some of your blind spots. So for example, one of the questions is, are you meeting with if you have a couple, are you meeting with both separately? And
Mm.
usually people are like, what? What do you mean meet with them separately? I can't meet with the woman alone. I'm like, yes, you can. Ask her. You'll get
Mm.
a totally different experience. And then you'll start bonding with the woman because she's going to say different things than when she's being a passive bystander in a couple meeting. And I'm
Mhm.
assuming that I'm not, she may not be, but in that situation, get her alone and see what's different, because the whole point is to make the relationship strong with the woman so you don't lose her when the spouse dies, which is in a likelihood what's going to happen, high likelihood, because she's going to live longer and she may or may not be engaged with you or even in the whole entire process. So, and again, every woman is different, every situation is different, every advisor is different. There's no like right or wrong. It's a lot of gray. So I go into all the specific details. So anyway, that's one thing. The second thing is the communication. And I think a lot of male advisors don't realize that they are using either jargon or male analogies like beating the S&P 500, which is a big turnoff to women because they really don't care about that.
Mhm.
And, they want to know everything's going to be okay. And, just the whole language and speak is not very female friendly.
Mhm.
So I have in one of my LinkedIn articles that is in one of my blogs somewhere, I compared shoes to asset classes.
Mm.
And women went crazy over that because they said, honestly, between you and me, I never really understood asset classes until I read this article. And
Mm.
meanwhile, some of them had been my clients for 20 years. And I even had my girlfriend who I've known for my whole life. And she said, I never really understood this until this article. And I'm not the only one that does this. I have a friend, Elaine King, and she compares asset classes to spices and recipes. So it's
Oh,
just a matter of switching it up and making it
right.
something that women understand more. And when I wrote that article a couple of years ago, I had men reach out to me and they were like, I learned about shoes. And I'm like, okay, good. You learned about shoes. That's great. So they learned something too, just kind of interesting, right? Just different way to look at it. I
Yeah.
think the other thing is that sometimes men don't realize that they may be excluding the woman because they're
Mhm.
having the conversation and eye contact with just the man.
Mhm.
So that's happens a lot. And then again, they think that the woman's not interested. So they have to figure out how to bring the woman into the conversation and why. And the
Mhm.
best way to do that is to find out what's important to her. It could be a charity, it could be anything. It could be anything. She wants a second home. She wants to make sure her kids are okay. She wants to make sure her kids are not spoiled. I don't know. It's a million different things that a woman would want, right? And finding out what's important to her and what her
Mhm.
goals are and what she wants this money to be. So I think that that's super important. And there's a lot of things that women want to be like with other women. So like that's another thing, like when I talk about like the events we were talking about, like don't take the men to sports and golf, and women are not going to do that. Like maybe some will, but most won't. Most will
Mhm.
come to a spa day,
Mhm.
or a wine and wealth, or you know a, a fun like lunch and learn where you're doing some sort of really fun activity. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to just make sure, I always say, just make sure in the room that it's, it's women in the room,
Mhm.
because it's going to change the dynamic if you bring men in the room. It
Mhm.
just changes it. So that's another whole long story about why that happens.
And I think it's, you had so many good ideas listed in your book, paint and pours, just these different events that are really fun. And I think sometimes too, it's as easy as asking your women clients what they would enjoy going to, and so then that can
Right.
give you ideas as well. One other thing that I just want to circle back to you because I've never heard it before is this idea of meeting with both spouses separately. I've seen a lot of advisors talk lately about, they actually won't meet with just the husband without the other spouse being there. And I think that's great. That's a great step in the right direction. But
Mhm.
how often does it result in one spouse, usually the woman, staying silent most of the time during the meeting? So
Right.
I actually
Right.
love this notion of inviting each spouse to their own separate meeting so that each person truly does get that one-on-one attention that I
Right.
think men have really benefited from historically when they're talking with advisors.
Yes. And the other thing is, I always say, like, so our industry was built, by men for men. So women were never really thought of as, oh, we should cultivate them as clients, we should go after them. Again, only looked at as widowed and divorced. Okay, well,
Mhm.
here's a time to get money moving, so let's go after those. But
Mhm.
I always say the playbook that worked for the men is not going to work for the women, because women are different. So,
Mhm.
they take longer to close, they need more meetings, they need more education, they don't want to be talked down to. And sometimes you don't even know you're doing it. Like, again, the blind spots, and there might be, in my book, there's also a thing on taking, it's a Harvard business review, a Harvard business, oh, sorry, Harvard education, not Harvard Business Review. It's Harvard Education, where you can go in and find your blind spots on,
Mhm.
are you, for your unconscious bias. And you don't know what you don't know. That is the point
Mhm.
of it. And so that will bring up, like, oh, I'm deficient here, or I'm talking this, or I'm not doing this. And so all those things are just bringing it to light, so that now you know what you don't, now you know what you know, or now you know what you don't know, or now you know
Mhm.
what you don't, what you're not doing.
Exactly, exactly. So one thing that I've been seeing recently is more and more advisors, men and women both, but mostly men, they say that their niche or their niche is women. And
Oh,
I'm curious to know how you feel about that.
it's not a niche. I say that all the
Mhm.
time. I've been quoted in a lot of magazines and articles saying that. I say women are not a niche, women are the market. Period.
Mhm.
They are the future of wealth management. They're going to control the nation's wealth by 2030, which is less than 4 years away now. They may have started out as a niche a long time ago, but they are no longer a niche.
No longer a
So
niche.
that's how I feel about that.
I'm so glad that I asked you that question because I've always felt, well, women are 50% of the population. You can't have a
Right.
niche. It's not a niche if it's 50% of the population.
Correct.
Cary, is
Correct.
there anything that we haven't touched on yet, maybe that I haven't asked you yet, that you think would be really pertinent just to round out this conversation, something you want advisors to know?
So I would say a lot of advisors say, like, on social media, like, how much time does it take, and how much do I have to do it, and all of that stuff. And so all I can tell you is, first of all, social media is free. So
Mhm.
all you have to do is consistently be on there. And I mean, you don't have to post every day. That's too much anyway. I try to limit myself to 2 to 3 posts a week, because I could post every day, all day, every day. So I try not to do that, because I will hate myself, let alone everybody else will not like me anymore. So I think once a week is perfect.
Mhm.
And you know what? You don't even know who's following you or watching you. And what happens in financial planning is, and this is what's happened my whole career, is that people either knew me or watched me, or had an article cut out on their counter and had me on their fridge, sometimes a year, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 3 years before they hired me. And so by
Mhm.
the time they got to me, they were like, I feel like I already know you. And it's
Mhm.
all through because of what I was doing on social media. So it's the consistency, it's the posting, it's the authenticity, It's your voice, it's what you believe in, it's what you're sharing, it's what you're educating. And all of that just makes clients literally just come to you, which I know
Mhm.
sounds ridiculous, but it's absolute truth. I'm living proof of that.
It's truth, and it always reminds me of that proverb too. Sometimes these sales cycles are really long, but the best day to plant a tree was yesterday, and the second best day to plant it is today. So you want to
Yeah,
get that started as early as possible. So I
exactly.
love that, Cary. Tell us about where people can find you if they want to learn more, get in touch with you, if they want to check out your books.
Sure. So CaryCarbonaro.com. You can put it in the little notes because my
Mhm.
spelling is weird, but it's actually like the pasta but with an O at the end. And so that's my website. But I you can get me on LinkedIn, you can get me on Instagram, you can get me on Facebook, you can even get me on Twitter, even though I'm not on there that much, or whatever it is now, X. And so it's Cary Carbonaro. Is super easy. I'm the only Cary Carbonaro on the planet, so I'm really easy to find. And on there has all of my stuff. It has my media, it has my newsletters, it has my blogs, it has anything you want to see. It has my book information, all of that stuff. So I'm really, really easy to find and reach.
Wonderful. Well, I will link to all of it in the show notes. Cary, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this. This has been so helpful, and I really appreciate it.
You are so welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.